Why make short films?
I think for a director, if you're trying to be a director, you should start off with a short film, and it's cheaper to make, and it's a calling card, and producers are more willing to watch a short film than your feature film. So that I've gotten more connections through my short film than I did with my feature films. Nobody wanted to watch my feature films. When I talk to executives or whoever, it's so easy to just be like, oh, after I've had a meeting with an executive, I'd be like, oh, by the way, I also made this short film and da da. I'll just send you the link. Check it out. It's only 8 minutes, and they'll be okay, and they'll check it out because it's only 8 minutes. Yeah, it's just a great way. It's a great tool that you create for yourself to get into other opportunities.
Regarding filmmaking education, what do you do to continue it? Masterclass, Unreal Engine, watching other movies?
Well, for me personally, I'm going to continue with Unreal Engine because I see that as the future of filmmaking. So I'm going to keep studying because there's so many aspects of it that I still have to learn and start making my own projects through that. So, but besides that, I'm always taking, whether it's class or self-studying in screenwriting, and just to keep my writing skills sharp. I'm constantly writing, and resources, like watching interviews on Film Courage. There's plenty of podcasts out there. There's so much material out there now for learning that for me personally, I don't think people really need to go to film school, and they probably shouldn't. This was different maybe 15 years ago, right? Where there weren't as many resources out there. But now there's so much that you can learn so much just on your own for free.
Do you think some people, though, would benefit from structure? Because with film school, don't they force you to have a thesis project or two?
Yeah. I think for some people, if you really need that rigid structure, then definitely do the film school thing. But you're also balancing that with how much you're paying for that school, right? So if you have a scholarship or something, yeah, if it's free, I'll probably do the same. But if it's oh, okay, I got to pay $100,000 for USC film school, I don't know. Is it worth it? Maybe you could use half of that money and make a film.
What advice would you give to other filmmakers about making a living as a filmmaker?
Making a living as a filmmaker. Well, it's very difficult to make a living as a filmmaker. You're always going to be doing something else for a living, at least in the beginning. Nobody steps out and just becomes a filmmaker and starts making a ton of money, right? So everybody needs something as a baseline to make an income. And for me, what I found out is once I was able to get a full-time job that still gave me the flexibility and freedom to be creative and do side projects, I was actually more creative, and I was able to pursue the projects that I wanted to do because I was freed up from having to worry about making money. Because when I was doing freelance and trying to be a filmmaker, it was okay, I'm writing, but I also have to go and PA on a film shoot. I got to go and edit this thing. I got to, be a grip. And those jobs don't pay that well, and it's very hard work. You're working 12 or more hours a day. And you're constantly worrying about where's your next gig. So that worry, is a blocker for me creatively. So without having to worry about where my next paycheck's gonna come, I was able to really focus and be more creative and write better.
That's a great point. And also, too, being out in the world, you talked about you like to just be out and explore, and
yeah,
it feeds ideas, whereas if you're just kind of in your own bubble in front of your computer, you don't get as many ideas.
Yeah. And if you're always working on a film set or something, then all you know is film. But sure, it's great to know how to make a film, but what is the essence of a film is still life. So it's better if you have a job in something completely unrelated, and then you end up writing a script that's set in that kind of world, right? And then when you talk to managers or agents, they're actually more interested because they're oh, you came from, I don't know, a military background. Oh, and you wrote a military film script. they immediately see that you brought authenticity to that script, and now they want to know about you and learn your story, and you just have more to talk about. Because when you meet executives, the last thing you want to tell them is like, oh, I'm a filmmaker and I made this film and that film and all I know is filmmaking. It's like they hear that all the time, so they want to hear a story that's like, oh, I used to be a detective and this happened and that happened. Now they're really interested in you.
Sure. And going back to your teaching, all the stories that you got from
Yeah.
people from all over the world is,
Yeah.
it sounds so interesting. But if you had just been here in the sort of LA life, you may not have
Everybody
gotten.
knows about that.
Are you as hopeful now as you were after you made your first feature film about your filmmaking, about being able to tell stories?
I'm definitely way more hopeful now than I was, 10 years ago, because I mean, technology has changed so much, right? I mean, when I made my first feature film, like we shot on the Red 1, and at that time the Red was like, oh wow, a digital cinema camera, that's a new thing. But now you have like so many different cameras that are way more affordable now. So I mean, anybody can, and even the lights are a lot cheaper. You can get different types of lights that can light everything. And then especially now with Unreal Engine, I'm so excited about it because I can make the films that I already wrote a script for, but there would basically be no way for me to make those unless it was through a studio. But now I can make those, myself really, as long as I put a certain number of hours into it, to still tell those stories. And there's endless possibilities of the setting, just like the aesthetics you can create with that. There's no boundaries, really.
And do you think too, because you said you kind of went on your own spiritual journey and got involved in, you said, meditation, Buddhism, that it also helped bring a new clarity to making movies?
Yeah, definitely. I think having clarity and just a sense of, who you are and what's important, and why you're doing something is like really important for not just for filmmaking, for anybody, right? But especially with the film industry, there's a lot of like pressure. I feel like maybe more so with screenwriters, where it's like, when are you gonna break through? When are you gonna do this? But I think once I kind of got a little bit more level-headed and at peace with myself, of like, hey, I don't have to hit a certain goal for me to feel like I'm doing something meaningful. I can be making a short film that maybe only like 10 people see, but if it's, has an impact on them, then I am doing something meaningful. And just through the process of me creating is meaningful for myself, then that's what I'm getting the joy from. So I'm not so much like result orientated, but more like why am I doing something, right? Like I always have to start from there.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. And so it's not just about like these accolades, it's about the meaning behind making these stories.
Yeah, and I used to identify myself as like, oh, I'm a filmmaker, but really it should be more like I'm a human being. I'm doing other things too. I have other passions, and I make films. But if I don't make films, I can write stories. I can, write poetry. I could do whatever as a creative. I think having a creative outlet is important, but I don't need to attach my identity as like I'm a filmmaker and that's all I do.
Why can't you stop? Why can't you stop making movies?
I don't know. That's a great question. I think there's a drive in me of creating, and it's like, why does anybody do anything, right? It's like, it's something that I find fulfillment in, like ever since I was a kid, I like making up worlds and stories with toys. So I think that kind of carried over. Maybe it's a return to being a child, right? Like you want to find that genuine kind of excitement or happiness as a kid playing with your toys. Maybe I'm searching for that. Maybe I'm just searching for something to fill a void, maybe. And that's where I'm coming to, where it's like, I think I could be okay not making films anymore if I can find something else to fill a void. Writing a story, you know, I get a lot of joy just from writing a script and reading it and having other people read it because they can experience a story. So yeah, why can't I stop? It's just a human nature. So you constantly want more and you're chasing after things. Yeah.
Do you think too with Bang Bang, because you had such great success with it? I mean, did you fill out both screenings or multiple screenings with numerous people?
Yeah, the screenings at the festivals, definitely. Even the theaters, yeah. But not all the cities. Like I had a screening in Austin, Texas, and only 5 people showed up. But, you know,
Yeah, I think that's a hazing.
yeah.
That happens. But I mean, it sounds like you did have like a lot of enthusiasm for the film. I bet that was very intoxicating. You know,
Yeah,
especially at a young age. You were 25?
25, yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it was definitely a very fun experience. You know, I met a lot of people through the movie, went to a lot of places, doing the screenings and to the festivals. But yeah, you can kind of maybe get lost in the festivals a little bit because everybody's praising you. So you feel like, oh yeah, I'm the next big filmmaker. But it's like, nah, like a bunch of people making films and, you know, it's like you just gotta plan out your next film, but don't let it get to your head, right? So I think I was definitely dealing with that a little bit of like, oh, suddenly people are looking at me like, oh, you're a filmmaker, great. Like, yeah, you know, I got an award at the LA Asian Film Festival, and but some of that can be like detrimental. I feel like to someone, you know.
Really? Why?
You know, you get too many compliments, and it goes to your head, and then you're not able to look at yourself critically, and then you have a false image of yourself.
That's amazing, though, that you could almost step out of yourself and see that. I mean, you could say that's the curse of many child actors, unfortunately. And
Yeah,
it's not always their fault. They've been told, you're amazing, this and that. And then when that's taken away, how devastating that is, you know?
yeah,
So I guess you could say that with anything, really. You know, you could be the I don't know, the best pool cleaning service in all of whatever. And then if that's taken away, yeah, then where's your
yeah.
identity after that?
And it's like, and that's why I was saying with a failure, it's probably the best thing that can happen to someone when you fail, because you learn life's biggest lessons from that, and you learn the most about yourself, because it's not about how you celebrate your success. It's more about how you deal with your failures. You know, that kind of defines your character and who you are.